As Chief of Police, it's my distinct pleasure to be able to bring forward a report that was promised to this board approximately a year ago. As everybody will recall, last July we did conduct a survey within our local county surrounding the issue of body-worn cameras. We have those results which we presented to the board and posted and very well publicized in our community. The board did request a more fulsome report recognizing the significant implications that a body-worn camera project would have, so I did endeavor to get that done. As you will recall, the Privacy Commissioner of Ontario did ask all police services boards to indicate in writing whether or not they were planning on rolling out a body-worn camera project within the first quarter of 2021, and if they were not in that position to do that, to ask that that stand down until their best practice document would be released. That did drag on a fair amount, and I felt it incumbent to ensure that this information and project was before the board for their consideration, but most importantly from the community, for the community's further input, and another opportunity to help guide our next steps on this project. I did task Inspector Shields with this project, and he will speak at great length about the academic and practical research that has uncovered in relation to body-worn cameras. We didn't wait for the Privacy Commission because it was going on and on and on. And coincidentally, as soon as we kind of hit print on our report, the Privacy Commission of Ontario did release their document and their guidelines and best practices. You'll note that our report mirrors some, not all, of the recommendations, and that's okay because it is merely a best practice guideline. I would also like to introduce Constable David Cunningham, Acting Sergeant Pat Tobin. Damon, who is known to many in our community, is 12 years with the Cobourg Police Service, served in a variety of roles, including community services and criminal investigations. Acting Sergeant Tobin comes to us with 9 years service, a few of them was in Toronto, and also with the breadth of experience. Kyle's currently an Acting Sergeant on Beagleston. They're here very simply because they're engaged future leaders of our organization. At a recent supervisors meeting where we had all our supervisors together, we had a very frank, open conversation around body-worn cameras. These two individuals volunteered their time to go to St. Thomas, who's currently undergoing a pilot project with body-worn cameras. St. Thomas is a comparator police service of us as far as community size, as well as police service size, budget, and the like. Therefore, their insight as to how this project is working in small town rural Ontario was very valuable. Their information gleaned from one day was invaluable that I could not have it part of this presentation. So, David and Kyle, thank you very much for your efforts and ongoing support of our initiatives. At this point, I will turn one other point. In the course of this presentation, there is a lack of financial detail. The reason being is the value of this project would require an RFP to be produced such that multiple vendors could compete for the opportunity. It would prejudice any future RFP if we were to speak in exact figures. So I believe the inspector will be speaking in general terms around minimal costs. If the board is interested in what we have received from one particular vendor in exact costs, Chair, I would ask that you bring that item alone to the in-camera session, where we can give thorough insight as to what one vendor would charge for a project of this nature. And without further ado, I would ask Inspector Jeff Shields to take over the process, and when everything's done, I'll wrap up and take any questions. Inspector.
This will be dangerous. Thank you, Chief Vandergraff, Chair Pepper, members of the board. As the Chief mentioned, this will be a summary of some of the findings that we came up with. There is not a wide breadth of research on body-worn cameras. There are pieces that are examined more fulsomely than others. A lot of that has been taking place in the United States. So I'm certainly capable of providing you more of those documents should you wish those, but at this time I've mentioned them briefly just so you know that there's not a lot of research in this field. So So this report was developed for general guidance. As I stated, there's a breadth of information that is available in the report that I provided. But it's an outline of the possible impacts, results, or benefits of the body-worn camera implementation. Sorry, phenomenal. You're good there? Oh, no, that's not. The purpose of a body-worn camera program would be to support Cobourg Police Service officers in the execution of their common law and statutory law enforcement and policing duties. Balances those duties with respect for the privacy rights of individuals. So a general outline of what a body-worn camera is a recording device that's designed to be worn on a law enforcement officer's uniform. Typically, it's mounted on the officer's vest or chest area. There are versions where it's clipped onto the bill of the baseball cap. It can be mounted onto the epaulet area. But generally, mounting it on the chest, usually in the center portion, provides the best view from the camera. So, for the most part, whatever the officer is looking at, the camera will be seeing as well. Body-worn cameras, they provide an audio and visual record of events and interactions with community members from an officer's point of view, as officers go about their daily duties. And you'll hear later from the two acting sergeants that the cameras don't necessarily have to be on 24/7. We can pick and choose whether we want to have that capability or if we want to do it on an investigation status. So when I interact with a person, that we can turn it on at that time. It backloads 30 seconds of, it's always recording, so it backloads 30 seconds, so if you hit the record button, it will activate, and you'll have that first 30 seconds. So as I said, they can be activated on demand or set to constantly record in order to provide a mobile capability that works in concert with static devices, such as CCTV or ICCS. So I'll be saying this a lot, and I'll make sure that I remember to identify. ICCS is in-car camera systems. Currently, Cobourg Police Service has 2. They record static being immobile. So when you're in the car and you pull a vehicle over, that camera can't move. So it only records what's in front of it. So if somebody were to leave the vehicle and move outside the camera site, you'd only have the audio from the microphone the officer's wearing. So body-worn camera is a unique device. It's complementary, as I said, to existing evidence collection devices, such as cameras or audio recorders, and the processes. And it's invaluable in providing historical record of events that can assist in present or future investigations, because you retain it. So somebody or a complaint arises or an investigation arises a month from now, there's that capability to have that already on file. Immediate, accurate, and secure collection of best evidence, so that evidence is not it's tamper-proof. The officer can't meddle with it. So if I'm at a scene and I record something, I can't just turn it off and delete it at the time. Once it's recorded, it's there. There's only certain people who have the capability to adjust anything there. It'll assist us in identification of training or customer service needs. Again, we don't all have exceptional days every day, so sometimes we might get a complaint about the language we use. While it may not be perfect, it gives us an opportunity to identify those areas where we can do better. And it doesn't necessarily mean there's investigation, but you know what, we could have done that better. We could have talked to that person differently. We could have gone to that scene more when we pull up and park and move into approach a house, for instance. It can show us where we could have used cover better. There's a lot of opportunities for us to train some better tactics and better uses of our language. Clarity and transparency, I'll be talking about that a lot throughout the course of this presentation. It's one of the main reasons why a lot of police organizations are looking at body-worn cameras. It enhances or builds the clarity around what we do, why we do it, when we do it, and allows us the opportunity to be transparent, to show the public, to show our members, to show the board what we do every day. And it's not just bad stuff, it can be for showing off the great work that we do on a regular basis. It provides us an ability to review the conduct of police, but also community members, and provide valuable evidence and context for use in court. Again, we're seeing now since COVID where the courts are relying a lot more on video opportunities, both in person and recorded, to assist in their contemplations and judgments in court. So police in the UK have been using body-worn cameras since the early 2000s. Violent events in the United States and Canada regarding use of force incidents in particular involving police officers are being increasingly captured by involved persons as well as passers-by. Where a body-worn camera or other recording device is not available, police integrity and reporting is increasingly being called into question because we don't have that capability. There's an increasing call for police to have body-worn cameras deployed to ensure accurate video records and evidence are available, to capture accurate records of all involved parties for court purposes, to hold police accountable in their community interactions, and to reduce frivolous or vexatious complaints. Most recently, the Derek Chauvin trial around George Floyd, passerby with a cell phone camera was instrumental in some of the evidence being presented in convicting Derek Chauvin. Body-worn cameras were instrumental in that. So they provided the real account of what people were seeing versus people just saying what they saw. It makes a difference in interpretation. Despite a lack of research generally, as I told you at the outset, and costs that may be prohibitive depending on the organization size and capability, many police agencies are now utilizing and planning deployments of body-worn technology. Again, as I said, to provide a truer picture of police and community member interactions at the time. This doesn't mean that our interactions with the community are in question at this time at all. It's just that when we're interacting, when our officers are having those moments, it provides an opportunity to have that capability. In August of 2020, the Cobourg Police Service reported on a survey related to community perceptions and beliefs around body-worn camera benefits and limitations. The survey indicated support for use of body-worn cameras with a sample size of 211 responses, and of those, only 9 were responding from outside of Northumberland or Cobourg. There was a large show of support for officers wearing body-worn cameras from 94% of the survey respondents. As well, the Toronto Sun in November of 2020 did a survey on behalf of Axon, which is a American company that also operates in Canada. They provide body-worn cameras. They provide a lot of different recording solutions for in-car camera systems, as well as interview rooms and things of that nature. So the survey was done on their behalf, but in that survey of 2,000 Canadians, 97% supported the use of body-worn cameras by police officers. So the key objectives that we looked at when thinking about a body-worn camera deployment. As I said, most policing organizations that look at this are looking at it from an effective and thorough collection of evidence standpoint. They also consider the reduction of physical or reputational attacks on officers and recording of those instances for the purposes of improving officer and organizational accountability and transparency. Any body-worn camera deployment, if approved by the CPS, would be guided by 5 key policy objectives listed below. And again, these are in no particular order. There's no right or wrong on any given day. One of these may be more important than another. So I just wanted to clarify that. So improve evidence collection, documentation and prosecution, including early case resolution. that was one of the things that came up in some of the research, was that they were finding when Crown and defense counsels were presented with roadside evidence from an in-car camera system, for instance, or from a body-worn camera system at, say, a domestic dispute, they found a little bit of an increase in the amount of time, a decrease in the amount of time used to create a resolution for that incident. Reducing officer court time, reducing time for the courts, and allowing them to deal with other things. We look to strengthen the commitment to bias-free service delivery by officers to the public. Again, enhancing transparency, public trust, and confidence. Enhancing officer accountability and professionalism. There's a lot of things to unwrap in that, and I'll talk about that a little bit. Protecting officers from unfounded allegations of misconduct, and would also increase the efficiency of resolution of complaints against the police. Again, similar to the court system, where they're looking at having those early resolution opportunities. If a complaint is made against an officer that had a video camera on, it might provide an opportunity for us to see that there is no complaint to substantiate here, and that could move on quickly. Or we could find that there is something to correct or do better, and again, we could move along with that process a lot faster. I think it goes without saying that the Cobourg Police Services always maintained a high level of trust within the community regarding our actions and the responses to the calls for service that we have. Community complaints regarding officer conduct are always low, and internal complaints about officer behavior are addressed quickly, and in fact, they're published annually, which again builds on our accountability and our public trust. As part of the Cobourg Police Services body-worn camera survey, officer interactions with community members were gauged as well. And 59 to 78 respondents to that part of the survey indicated that they were Cobourg residents. And again, an overwhelming satisfaction was noted with officer demeanor at 97% and professionalism at 93.5%. Public and private people and organizations utilize electronic devices to capture interactions more frequently. There's potential for editing or provision of incomplete recordings, calling into question an officer action during interaction. So again, the court system is an opportunity. It's increasingly open to and relying on the availability of public and private recordings to assist in court prosecutions. Officers we're not immune to oversight. In fact, we've got an awful lot of it within the organization and without. So officers are constantly monitored in some way every day, as most of us are, whether it's going into a bank or going into a private business or something, walking by somebody who has a camera on their garage. At some point during the day, we're almost always recorded on some kind of a device. Our officers constantly have oversight from supervisory duties. They have the complaint and investigation processes, i.e. chief's complaint, where a member of the public complains, OIPRD, or even SIU. GPS in the cars, they provide speed records of how fast our officers are traveling in the cars, whether they're going to a call or not. It also identifies the location of that car should we need to find them, should there be an incident going on and they can't get to us on the radio. Portable radios actually also provide GPS coordinates when we keep the mic. Again, personal devices, so we provide cell phones for each car, tablets for each car. Those devices provide GPS coordinates. The cell phones, clearly, you can't bill if you don't know where that phone is making the call from or sending the text from. So those provide an option for them to be tracked as well. Again, police vehicle in-camera recording systems also provide that tracking. When we activate the lights, those devices turn on and record everything on the microphone as well as the camera, both in front of the vehicle and in the cabin and the prisoner compartment. Even COVID electronic screening is done to log our members in and out of the building, so we know when they're here, when they leave, and CCTV cameras are spread out throughout the building, so we can track individuals coming and going from the building if we need to. essential areas such as booking or the breath room or the interview room are also recorded. And as I said at the beginning, externally there's a myriad of personal devices and business organizations that record. A deployment would be a large undertaking. So there's an internal and external communication plan that would have to take place that would speak to our members, and would also speak to the community and look for their participation, look for their understanding, look for their education about what the body-worn cameras are. We've developed procedures and policies that address the use or lack of use, when to use, how to use those devices. There'd be complementary technology. So body-worn camera in and of itself is a great device. The nice thing about it is that it can work in unison with so many other devices, whether electronically tethered, such as body-worn cameras can be tethered to the in-car camera system, for instance. So when I activate the emergency lights, both devices will turn on. So now I don't have to worry about pulling up to a scene, getting out, and making sure that I've turned on my body-worn camera. It'll automatically be on, for instance, reducing that little bit of fine motor skill stress that's required. Doesn't have to happen every time, but it has that capability. CCTV, again, it gives you a different view. So CCTV is usually mounted fairly high. Doesn't necessarily give you good views of facial features or other areas of the environment. Pardon me. Body-worn cameras obviously provide you a ground level view, so it makes it an opportunity for you to link them up to see what you're seeing. What would be expected would be a mandatory monthly supervisor review of defined incidents. So we would set certain types of incidents that an officer would have to go over with their supervisor a few times every month. What that does, that provides an opportunity for that supervisor to interact with their employees and their members to make sure that they're staying in touch. It's valuable for evaluations, but it also gives an opportunity to look at determining things that may be good for training purposes, where we can, where we can identify things that we did really well, things that we can bring to the board to show the great work that our people do within the community. But it also gives us an opportunity to help them with how they articulate themselves, or how they make use of force selections. So there's a wide range of things that we can see if we actually spend our time to review that video. It doesn't have to be long, but it has to happen, so that will help build our accountability and trust with the community. And the digital evidence management system, which is currently being rolled out, we have currently a contract with Axon Canada for our digital evidence management system. It's called evidence.com. And all of our digital evidence, photos, audio logs, videos go into there. Sometimes documents can as well. They are the supported digital evidence management system for the province now. So we have members right now who have the capabilities to operate within that system without requiring any additional training, and it's been working pretty well so far. And again, one of the things that arises when you start collecting more information is you will have people wanting to see what we've collected about them, for instance. And it would be anticipated that there would be an increase in freedom of information requests around video. And as such, we would look at we would be developing a new fee schedule due to that anticipated demand. Again, I'm not sure if I made it really clear, but many parts of this procedure, the in-house procedure we would develop, would be made available to the public as an education piece to let them know, again, what our members are expected to do or not do, when they're expected to record or not record, and just to make sure that the public is aware of what we're doing so that, again, we can keep that accountability and trust. Currently, we have a few municipalities around us that are looking at or have engaged in some manner of a pilot project. So currently, the Peterborough Police are contemplating a body-worn camera project. Belleville Police Services just completed a pilot project. Durham Regional Police Service has completed a year-long project. They have quite a detailed narrative document on their website, which is available to the public. I believe it's 536 pages. It's an extensive review of how it worked for them. So, and the OPP is in the process of beginning a one-year evaluation as well. As the chief mentioned earlier, St. Thomas Police Service is a similar size service that has deployed body-worn cameras in a pilot project. Members from our service, specifically Sergeants Cunningham and Tobin, were able to attend and gain insight into the program and see some of the benefits and challenges to their organization and their members. And I'm going to ask them to come up and continue the presentation.
Service members, Mayor, Chief, Inspectors, I appreciate you allowing me to come here today and be a part of your Police Service Board. Recently, myself and Kyle attended the St. Thomas Police Service for a body-worn camera project. The chief chose St. Thomas because the St. Thomas Police Service is a similar sized police service. So, they currently have 75 officers and approximately 42,000 people, which is the closest service in size to our town. From October 2020 to January 2021, the St. Thomas Police Service conducted a 120-day body-worn camera pilot project. And they actually just implemented the body-worn camera system fully functional. I think it was last week. And now all officers are required to wear the body-worn cameras, and there is no longer, they've all completed the training and currently fully active in that program. Some of the things about the body-worn camera pilot project, they actually have 32 cameras split between their day and night shifts, so 16 for each shift. And they have a minimum of 5 officers on patrol at any given time with the cameras being worn. They acquire extra cameras for paid duties and special projects. For the most part, only uniform members wear the body-worn cameras. CIB, or Criminal Investigation Branch, investigating units, and the mental health response officer do not wear body-worn cameras for privacy of both the public and the, in the case of the mental health officer, the client. When speaking with the inspector from St. Thomas, one of the main reasons why the service did not implement personal use body-worn cameras was because of cost and storage management that would require to have each member to have their own unit. Currently, the only officer with personal use body-worn camera is the canine officer, and that's because they're deployed from home.
Similar to Cobourg, St. Thomas conducted a community survey on deployment of body-worn cameras before their pilot project began in October of 2020. And obviously, similar to Cobourg, they had overwhelming support. 93% of those surveyed were highly supportive or in support of members of the service having body-worn cameras. They also conducted an internal survey amongst their uniform members prior to deploying the body-worn cameras, and then did one at the end of the pilot project, and found that an increase in the number of officers that were in favor of the body-worn camera after having used it for those few months there. So St. Thomas Police policy on when body-worn cameras should be activated as soon as reasonably possible prior to arriving at the call for service, or upon arriving there to activate the camera. There's a button on it, you just push it to turn it on. And as the inspector said, it's on a 30-second recorded loop constantly, so as soon as you activate it, it'll have pre-recorded just 30 seconds of the video. The audio doesn't come on until it's activated. And the only time they would be required to turn it on is if they're engaged in some sort of investigation. If they're just speaking to a member of the public about the weather, sports, they don't need to activate it. The camera also gives the remote capability to say incident command. If there's a demonstration or some event going on, the command can remotely view the cameras from another location. And that also assists with use of force training. So officers go through scenarios during use of force training. At the end of it, the video can be played back and points can be brought up for improvement or things that they did well. The officer also has the ability, at least in St. Thomas, that once they finish the call and the recording is finished in the back of the car, they can review the video on their work phone in the car. And theirs are linked with their taser. So as soon as their taser or their conductive energy weapon is taken out of the holster and turned on, it automatically turns on the camera. That way, if it's a high stress situation, they forget to hit the button, they don't need to worry, it's already on and recording.
And just to add to that, it has been determined that officers can use the body-worn camera footage to conduct their note taking after investigation or any interaction with anybody. Some of the highlights, factors to consider for not activating or deactivating the body-worn camera. For instance, in the case where an officer forgets to turn on, you basically, as soon as you remember, you turn on the record button and explain what the scenario was for why it wasn't immediately activated. Some of the, as Kyle had stated, for formal statements, investigative discussion between police and personnel are some of the reasons that you do not be activating your body-worn camera, as well as circumstances of a sensitive nature, i.e. going to a place of worship, so a church, healthcare facility, or places that are protected by legal privilege. When speaking with officers from St. Thomas, one of the biggest concerns that they had with body-worn cameras is speaking with confidential informants and the possibility of these informants being exposed. Both myself and Kyle have been in positions where we worked in the detective branch, and working with informants is one of the biggest assets you can have in order to conduct investigations. And so obviously having informants is it's extremely important to the service and to members of certain units who have these. So making sure that the informant is still protected while providing information is one of the concerns that they had when wearing. Other scenarios, making sure would be with booking and handling prisoners in the facility so that all interaction is recorded. One of the main things while wearing a body-worn camera and interacting with the public is making sure that you advise the public as soon as the interaction takes place that the interaction is being recorded. A private place, the definition is a place where one may reasonably expect to be safe from uninvited intrusion or surveillance, but does not include a place to which the public has lawful access. Such places include but are not limited to a place of worship in the lawyer's office and private residence. So for example, we get dispatched to a domestic at someone's house or the church, we're automatically going to have that body-worn camera activated, and we would still have to advise them to have it on. However, because of the circumstances, we are legally allowed to have the body-worn camera. If they just said no, we don't want you to have it, we would still be lawfully required to have it activated. For a public place, anywhere downtown, and obviously when we're conducting foot patrols, we would only activate the body-worn camera when we were conducting an investigation. It would just be on the whole time we're working. One of the things that St. Thomas Police Services officers noticed since the implementation of their program was that body-worn cameras have started to hold the public more accountable for their actions when interacting with the police. So not only is it holding officers more accountable for the way that they speak and talk to the public, but it's also doing the same effect to the public. As soon as they know they're being recorded, it's pretty hard to argue with saying, no, I didn't say that, or no, I didn't do that, and the whole interaction's on pretty good.
So with regards to release of body-worn camera footage, currently in St. Thomas, they hired 2 full-time civilians for freedom of information request to process the video, because they obviously predicted that there would be an increase in those requests. Members of the public may be allowed to view body-worn camera footage that captures an incident in which they were involved for the purpose of attempting to informally resolve a complaint or potential complaint in the conduct of a service member. And also, it may be released where the chief determines that there exists a compelling public interest. The body-worn camera footage can be released, and that would be a decision made by the chief. And just to touch on discipline, St. Thomas Police, what they did, once all their members were completely trained on the body-worn camera system, they gave them basically a 60-day grace period. Once you're fully trained, within those 60 days, if you forget to turn on your camera at a call for whatever reason, there would be no formal discipline. You'd be spoken to about it. But past that 60 days, then that's when the formal discipline would initiate, whether that be hours lost or a formal Police Service Act hearing. Skipping ahead, and that's all myself and you have.
So I just got one more thing to add. So with regards to wearing a body-worn camera, for instance, I attend someone's house, I advise them I have the camera and the interactions that we recorded, and they advise that we don't want you in our house, we don't want to be recorded. Depending on the situation, if it's a 911, obviously, like I previously stated, we were required by law to enter the premise, the public place, private place, to conduct an investigation. However, if it's something not of an emergency nature, and say, well, we can deal with this situation outside your residence if you feel more comfortable. However, while I'm dealing with you, I have to have it recorded so that there's no questions later on as to why the interaction was not recorded if we're, like I said, conducting an investigation. And that can be almost anywhere, as we're not going to be turning off our cameras just for the sake of the public, not wanting to have the investigation recorded. And that's all I have. I just want to thank everybody for letting Colin and I be a part of your board meeting, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, just don't want to. Maybe you can answer. Sure. I'm just curious what type of cameras St. Thomas had deployed. In my research I conducted, there was different types of cameras that were being deployed. One in particular that I noted was a live feed that the person that you would be dealing with, the public, would be able to actually see the recording while you're actually recording. So I'm just curious what cameras St. Thomas had deployed if you
St. Thomas, as far as we know, only utilize the one type of camera. I don't know the model number or anything off the top of my head, but it's similar to the ones you see in the United States. It's just a small little black box with a camera, and it has a light that illuminates when it's recording.
Okay.
So the person in front of you should be able to see that this light is flashing red and it's recording, and obviously the officer would indicate that to them at the beginning of the conversation. I know they trialed different mounts, like I have mounted to the body armor, to the shirt, depending on what they're wearing, but I don't recall any other different types of cameras. There may have been, but
okay.
I know Toronto used some different cameras, the one you mentioned in their pilot project with the screen on it that showed what was being recorded, but I think there was some concerns with officer safety of having this bright screen illuminated, especially at nighttime.
And just to follow up, how would you guys feel about something like that, just out of curiosity? In research I conducted, Constable Cunningham had touched on it, that the public was more aware and being cordial with officers in the interaction. The research I found was the live feed where the member was actually seeing themselves being recorded really helped de-escalate that tension. For experienced officers like yourself, how would you find something like that if you were dealing with a member of the public?
Yeah, I think there's pros to that. I mean, personally, either way, I think as long as the person is aware they're being recorded, whether it's an illuminated screen or a light, I think it's going to have similar, what's the word for it, outcome of how they're how they're going to react to you and how they're, because I can see like they might forget that you told them they're recording or you're recording, sorry, and they may escalate and not remember that you are recording. But if there's that reminder of that light or that screen, I can see that have benefits to that.
Okay. You know, I believe when speaking with St. Thomas, the different levels of cameras and also the packages you have for storage depend on the cost. So the cameras with the actual screen on them are a higher level of body worn camera, which therefore cost more to purchase and also cost more to repair. That was the one thing that they said.
Did they happen to share the estimated costs of putting the system in place?
They wouldn't share with us because I guess they signed a non-disclosure agreement.
Yeah.
Because they were one of the first services in Ontario to get it from Axon.
So there was a point they shared with you, the fact they hired 2 civilians for data management, I believe, storage, was it?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
And they also stated that they're going to have to hire more because there's actually more work involved than they initially, more so for when they're in the public and trying to blur out people's images or background conversations that are not to be shared with everybody.
Interesting.
And there was also some concerns shared by the officers there that it was going to create more administrative work for them, say at the end of the shift or through the course of their duties. The only thing they really have to worry about is that when they're finished that call, they have to categorize the type of video that it is for things such as retention, like how long they're going to hold the video for. But they would do that as they go between calls. Sometimes they got busy, they would do it all at the end of the shift.
So the one thing I will say is, so part of the information of the project, all members of the service were advised that there will be no overtime incurred by officers if they decide that we're only going to download our video camera at the end of shift. Rather, most officers are doing it call by call, so that when it gets to the end of the shift, they're not trying to do a full day's work of data management, because the chief had already put in the policy that that's not going to be approved for overtime. So that was one of the big things, and it has made it easier for management to go through different incidents. For instance, if we deal with somebody first thing in the morning by noon hour, that anybody that requires can go through that actual incident and have it all right there. Is why they suggest that you are downloading as the calls go. Yes, sir.
Just one last question for me. How do you guys personally feel about body-worn cameras, and judging the membership at Cobourg Police Service? What would your opinion be of the overall membership, your fellow officers with body-worn cameras?
Personally, I'm for it. I always have been. Just from personal experience with our in-car camera system, I've actually had to resolve complaints that much quicker, where a member of the public wasn't satisfied with something I did. They make the complaint, the video is reviewed and found to be contrary to what they say. So that way there's not this long drawn out investigation where the officers stressed everybody. It just gets resolved that much quicker. And I would say a lot of the other officers, from who I've spoken to, don't have an issue with it. A lot of younger officers that are used to being on camera. Like I started in Toronto, we had in-car cameras right from the get-go when I started 9 years ago. So I'm kind of used to it. It doesn't bother me being on camera.
For myself, I'm obviously not that old, but basically since compared to the rest of the but I had grown up where cell phones have been a part of my life since my adult years, and being on camera basically everywhere I go. I'm a local resident. I was originally completely against wearing a camera, more so concerns of how to deal with the chief afterwards. But I honestly think it's probably a good thing for myself and for the public to at least look into. I'm definitely not against it. And like I said, I spoke to a lot of different officers in St. Thomas and a few of my buddies that are in other services, and they've, not many of them have had negative information to share with regards to how to use them. One of the big things is with investigations, whether it's a chief's complaint or public complaint or SIU investigation, it definitely will help speed up the process where something used to take 1, 2, 3 years to deal with. Whether it's good or bad for me, it could really wrap that up really quick. So that's another thing that they were mentioning.
Thank you.
I don't know. I
Council Cunningham going to go to a call, and I was on a day off, so I wanted to free him up. So as chief, it's makes my job really, really easy to have the folks who this close to the impacts and where everybody on cameras here making the presentation. It is no secret why those were chosen. They're great individuals. They work really hard for the town of Cobourg. One was in favor of the project, one was definitely not in favor of the project. So therefore, it made my decision really easy, and I concur with Constable Cunningham. It'll make our relationship a lot easier.
Take care.
Thank you. Chair, to Member Graham. So, as Damien was speaking, I just wanted to touch on that. The comment that you made about some of the research, it has definitely been shown that there's a civilizing effect of having a body-worn camera in the situation, both for the officer and for the member of the public. What also has been found to happen in different pieces of research that I found was that officer discretion suffers not the right word, but officers feel very concerned about doing something that they would normally do, but now because it's on camera, they feel they can't. So, say for a speeding ticket, where maybe they might give a 10 over instead of the 25, the full 25. Because they're being captured on their camera, also on the ICCS, the in-car camera, they might be hesitant to exercise that discretion. Where they're having a conversation with somebody downtown and maybe they know that person has a warrant and they're trying to finagle them to show up, come in and turn yourself in versus actually grabbing them and causing a scene downtown. There's that hesitancy that's been identified where officers may not do that. And that's one of the things I talked about at the outset was that we as part of our procedural implementation, we'd be making sure that our officers knew we're not expecting you to do anything different. Do your job, do it well, go home safe. But if you would normally have given discretion to somebody or in a certain situation, the expectation would be that what's been working for you, continue to do that, recognizing that it's on camera, and if they complain about that behavior, then it may come up. But we want them to be normal. We want them to act as if they would not have a camera on their body. So that was one of the things I wanted to identify, that is something that has come up in the research about the hesitancy. So
I did read that in your report on the discretion issue. So, yeah, that would be good if the office, because I think personally, when everything's followed to a T, if anything, we probably have more complaints at that point go up. So that discretion, I do think, is a key element in your job.
right. And from a complaint-driven standpoint, I was going to talk about it later. I'll talk about it now. So excuse me. From a complaint-driven standpoint, there's conflicting views on whether having a camera increases or decreases whether complaints are made or not. Where no camera is present, people might feel, well, there's no sense in making a complaint because it's my word against theirs. Where there is a camera, now they're like, well, I can't make a complaint because it's on camera. So there's that. It would be interesting to see how that would go through a large research project with, say, Durham Police or something like that. So having one and not having one creates different issues around complaints for sure. Thanks.
you got a presentation or?
Yeah, I've got a couple more. And
Yeah,
then,
no, okay.
So as Damien Kyle noted, that with the collection of digital evidence through audio and video recordings from the camera increases a significant storage issue. It creates more evidence that we have to manage. I wanted to show some of the items that we currently deal with from a digital standpoint anyway. The Cobourg Police Services has gradually been increasing our capabilities with the evidence gathering that we do. Axon Canada generously donated to every police service the ability to use Axon Citizen. Axon Citizen would allow me to send the chair, if you had video recording from your doorbell camera, for instance, of somebody coming in stealing a package off your front porch, we would be able to send you an electronic email or a text message that would allow you to send that directly to us. So I wouldn't have to send an officer to your house to, obviously we would take your report, but we wouldn't have to have you go through the trials of trying to record that video onto a USB, a CD, DVD, things of that nature. You could submit it by way of a text or an email, and then we could automatically log it, and it would be part of the evidence package for that particular incident. So that's been going on since approximately March, April of 2020. So community members currently, they provide us mediums such as USB, CD, and DVD anyway for different things, just because they know how to do it and it's easy for them. But those things are taken, they're added to evidence.com, which we have already been using for that same period of time. And then those items can be returned to that community member. We're no longer stockpiling these things. As soon as it's transferred electronically, that's considered the evidence. It's considered past evidence. Again, with the evidence.com software, it gives us the ability, the local Crown now has the capability to use Axon evidence as well. And so it allows us to share a whole case file with the Crown electronically. We do that with a lot of case files already now, but with the digital evidence, we can add that in as well. So it just makes that transfer of information that much more functional and quick. Digital evidence is collected through our in-car camera systems. It records 3 camera views, so it records the front, it records the cabin audio, and it records the prisoner area if we had a prisoner in the back seat. As I said, Axon Citizen is something that we're currently using. But as part of that program, we also have the capability of capturing photo, video, and audio on the work cell phones that we issue to each member and within the cars. So again, those submissions can automatically go into a case file and electronically are stored, and they can be managed and categorized. As I said, we issue cell phones, audio recorders, and we have video cameras in the station. Those are all electronically stored. Our forensic identification service and seasoned crime officers have electronic or digital cameras. We store all the data files from those cameras whenever they go to a scene. Liberty Video software currently is the recording software that we use for the booking room, breath room, and interview rooms. And as well, we'll have the CCTV, Next Generation Community Safety Strategy Mesh Video Network, which will also be part of that. Almost done. So the anticipated results increase professionalism. So again, as we talked about briefly, if I have an officer who has a camera on, it may give them a cause to consider the language they use. It may help us train them to use better language, for instance. It gives them an opportunity to record information at the time. Again, having a camera on your body, you can use that to record evidence. You can also use it to dictate what's going on. It provides them a lot of opportunities to get more information. Increased customer service quality. Again, it gives us an opportunity to speak to the public, to show the public the work that we're doing. increases our ability to identify those areas or incidents where we could have done our work better. And that particular piece of information can be translated across the organization. Again, officer articulation and report capabilities. As we spoke, speaking with Member Graham, the frivolous and vexatious complaints, it may create more legitimate complaints because now there's a camera and it actually records what's going on, but it may also reduce those from people who want to say something because they're unhappy with the results. As Constable Cunningham, Constable Tobin stated, we can reduce the complaint, or if we can increase resolution times. That can be for court purposes, that can also be for complaint purposes, not just complaints. Increased information management requirements obviously are going to kick in. We're going to have a need for supervisors to review the videos. So there will be an opportunity for them to interact with their members, but that will take time. So they'll have a little bit of a time management need that they have to address. Storage capability, right now it's stored in the cloud, but things change and maybe we decide that if something like this were going to be approved, we want an in-house storage solution as well. Management and editing, so redaction, as Constable Cunningham spoke to, where there's video collected and I have people in the background or have a license plate. That's all personal information according to the Privacy Commissioner, and it would have to be redacted before it is provided. So again, software nowadays is incredible, and that can be done just by simply identifying a particular skin tone and they can be blown up pretty quick. Again, auditing and sharing of that information, whether it's an FOI information request, for instance. Body-worn cameras integrate with ICCS and CTV, as I talked about earlier. It enhances our investigative capabilities. Spoke about the evidence collection, enhanced training and integration of video examples into training and qualification days. So again, as I spoke about, training really can benefit from having these videos available so that we can identify what we did really well, what we did that needs improvement. One of the things that came up in research that it talked about where officers may, knowing that they're being recorded, take a better amount of time to select the use of force option that's most appropriate. Sometimes an officer may just by habit go and automatically draw the taser, where pepper spray might be more appropriate, or a baton might be more appropriate. So, or a pistol might be more appropriate. So in looking at these, it gives us an opportunity to identify that, but it also, having this camera on there, the officer may take that opportunity to just give it just a little bit more time to go, is this the most reasonable option? Can I do a less significant option with a baton versus going to a pistol? It would be anticipated that there'd be an increased privacy complaints issue. Again, people walked into my house and they just recorded everything that was going on even though I told them not to. We would, part of our communication plan will be talking about when we're allowed to do that, when we're lawfully placed in a residence and things of that nature. We would expect to see those complaints would increase, as well as FOI requests in regards to videos that were captured and data there. As I said earlier, there would be a development of a new fee schedule that would address the additional workload of anybody who's doing freedom of information requests. It would be anticipated there would be a temporary organizational stress and hesitancy around device training, around the monitoring that it would imply, and the deployment. But that is one of the things that Constable Tobin and Constable Cunningham spoke to, the 60-day time period. Pretty much every officer at St. Thomas within that 60-day period became comfortable with it. It became a habit, a matter of turning on the camera whenever they had an interaction. There is a potential, as we saw with St. Thomas, they had to hire two more individuals to help with their data management. There is a potential for future staffing increases, but as I said earlier, right now, the minimal integration that we're doing with all of our digital management is being accomplished through three employees right now. I don't foresee that changing As we get more data that has to be managed, it's a potential that we would have to dedicate someone specifically just to that. Again, at this time, I don't see why that one person would be somebody that we could do internally. Again, with the ability for faster resolutions, it's anticipated you can see a reduced court attendance and overtime needed. So in conclusion, police organizations always consider how to increase its service to the community. That doesn't mean we have to go body-worn cameras, but it's integral to provide reputational security and protection regarding officer performance expectations, conduct, ethics, and customer service. Expectations around objectives and programs or program success must be well defined. We have a procedure that's in place, or not in place, but it's been developed. Certainly it needs more work, but if it was something that was approved, we already have those pieces started to be developed. And that could be provided to the community. Again, defining what we can and can't do so the community is educated, the community understands what we're doing. The expectations have to be tempered to recognize that body-worn cameras do not automatically ensure that we're going to have accountability, transparency, and trustworthiness. Every municipality is different, and police members in the community should be fully involved, consulted, and engaged throughout any process that were to take place. Every development will evolve uniquely. So what happened in Durham is not something that would be logically expected to take place if it was to happen here in Cobourg, or Cobourg, or in St. Thomas. So every deployment is unique. It's based on the community and the organizational needs, independent of what your expectations are. So just because this is what we're planning on doing, doesn't mean that it will occur. The strangest things happen when you make plans for something to happen. It changes and goes off track, not necessarily bad, but it changes. Constant review and evaluation of the goals, the needs, and the objectives of any program deployment are essential. Questions? Sean?
Through your chair to the inspector, just out of curiosity, or perhaps chief can feel this, is there any other services that you've heard of that are actually contemplating this that actually reflect the true size of Cobourg? Like I look at St. Thomas and it is double the size of our community. So I was just wondering if you've heard any chatter from perhaps other chiefs from, let's say, Port Hope or other services of the same size that they're contemplating this as well.
Well, I know that Port Hope isn't intending on engaging in this type of a program anytime soon. I had that from their inspector. Again, things change. So that was when I first started this. I don't have anything from smaller sizes services. Again, most of my research has been around Calgary, Toronto, looking for those problem areas that they were identifying and the expectations around research from a Canadian standpoint. Like I said, it's pretty small. So to be fair, I don't have a real grasp on that. There's a lot of smaller United States organizations, but I don't know how they implement it. I didn't look at their process.
Just a follow up. Is there, sorry,
Yeah, right. Through the chair to Member Graham, I hear your question. So we start preparing smaller agencies. St. Thomas is that next smallest agency who's actually rolled out a pilot project where we can actually go and study and see. I always want to remind, we do this at negotiations, but I always want to remind the board that when you look at our size comparators, we cannot forget our geographic comparators. So the OPP, I suspect, will be rolling this out throughout. They're doing their test right now in Western region, which means all they're doing is testing out their internal software to ensure that everything works before they go across the province. My suggestion is over the next 12 to 18 months, they'll be in Northumberland County. So for our county, our criminals know no boundaries, nor do our great folk who move from community to community, celebrating, shopping, and entertaining. So it's incumbent for us to recognize that as leaders of a police agency, this is what we do, is we lead. But I just think I've said one of the many media junkets I've had recently over this. In 5 years, we're not having this conversation. This is going to be an essential piece of kit that everybody will be they liked it. And I'm old enough, obviously, as the officer said, that I recognize when we struggled with moving to semi-automatics, when the whole taser thing was now it's a non-issue. So to your point, there's no smaller agency right now that's out there doing it. We're all in the same kind of ballpark, or we should be, as far as police leadership. We should be into this conversation that we're currently in.
Through your chair, Inspector Shields, thank you for a wonderful presentation on this matter. The only question I have, you're talking freedom of information. The officers indicated that over time there may be an enhancement or an increase that has to be looked into by the past. Cobourg Police Services has been limited by the Attorney General at that level what we can charge. They have a very restrictive costing. Do you foresee that they'll open up that latitude to allow boards to make determinations on a fair and reasonable costing?
So the freedom of information in relation to police records is guided by the LEARN committee. I forget that acronym is, so my apologies. They have no policy. My intent is to present, should this go forward, to present to the board a new fee structure for the board's consideration that would take this outside of that $5. And that this is video, it's not a record per se as far as a printed document. So the LEARN committee, I'm sure, will be tackling the actual fee structure moving forward.
Any other questions? John?
Just follow up to this after. So just so I'm clear, right across the country, let's say Canada, is there any services that you're aware of that would be similar size to Cobourg? And the reason why I ask that is once we identify what the costing of this is going to be, I think to be clear to the community as to if we were to move forward with justification for those in the public that would want to look towards, once we release the information to that community of similar size to justify the costing that could be associated with this project. Just because we don't know what that is at this time, and it could be significant to the community if we were to move forward on that. So just my question would be, is there any services in the country similar size to Cobourg that have looked at this, other than just Ontario?
So 2 points. So as far as I know, there are no deployments.
Okay.
There may be other services that have looked at it,
Okay.
which is your question, but I know what you meant. My understanding is there are, of our side.
Okay. Thank you.
Any questions? We'll move down.